All right, well, I have 102, so let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to today's Lunch and Learn webinar brought to you by LSU Online and Continuing Education. We're so happy to have you join us today. I hope you have, a little bite to eat, maybe a comfy seat, because in today's webinar, we're going to hopefully discuss a topic which is today's online learning environment, which is a topic that has experienced a drastic shift and has kind of been top of mind for a lot of people given the last 6 months. So before we get started, I'd like each of you to take a moment and think about a couple of words. How would you describe the current state of online learning? And once you've come up with those words, type them in the chat pod and share them with the group. This is just kind of hopefully get us starting to think about some problems we're experiencing, maybe some good things that could come as a result of the shift that's been going on in today's online learning environment. So as y'all are thinking about those words, I want to introduce some of my co-panelists and myself. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Lydia Treadwell, and I am a senior learning experience designer at LSU, where I work with LSU faculty to help transform their courses into high quality learning experiences. A lot of the faculty members that I work with have been teaching in person on LSU's campus for decades and are teaching online for the first time. So I try to meet them where they are and give them some strategies to transform what they do in the classroom into a truly engaging experience for online. I've also taught online for about 7 years with both LSU and Clemson University. And I'll turn it over to my first co-panelist, Dr. Oliver Ozzie Crocco.
Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you for that. My name is Dr. Oliver Crocco, but most people call me Ozzie, which is a longtime nickname. And currently, I'm an assistant professor in the School of Leadership and Human Resource Development in the College of Human Sciences and Education here at LSU. And I'm the coordinator of our new Learning Experience Design and Innovation program. And I come to this, my master's degree is in Human Development and Psychology from the Harvard University Graduate School of Education, where I got very interested in how people think and learn and grow and develop. And then I went on to do my doctorate in Human and Organizational Learning at the George Washington University, where I was sort of continuing thinking about and researching, how do we learn and how do we sort of integrate our learning into organizational contexts.
All right, thank you. Kristen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today. My name is Kristen Boudreau. I'm an enrollment concierge with LSU Online, and I'm also an alumni of the E.J. Arceau College of Business, class of 2013 here at LSU Baton Rouge.
All right, so what is today's webinar going to look like? This 1 hour session, we're going to address the current state of online education, I guess, as we have come to understand it, and how we can possibly adapt to this new education normal through this emerging field of what we call learning experience design, or LXD for short. We'll also talk about some career options that LXD offers, as well as several programs that are offered through LSU to help you advance your career in this emerging field. So without further ado, so obviously 2020 has been an unprecedented year in a lot of ways, but especially when we're thinking about online learning. As we know, with COVID-19, a lot of our schools shut down completely or experienced an emergency transition to remote. I know I saw this firsthand as we were supporting faculty on campus some of which had never done much outside of posting a syllabus online for students to see, and they did all of their teaching in person, to suddenly having to take all of their materials and transition their instruction to a fully online or remote format. We won't get into this discussion until a little bit later, but the results were mixed. We didn't have too many instructors who were able to preserve that same high quality learning experience that they gave their students in person for online. But more broadly, outside of the COVID-19 situation that we find ourselves in, as proven by your very presence in this online webinar, fully online learning is becoming more and more common, if not that this new normal, especially for the foreseeable future. But as we, kind of go from face-to-face to looking more to hybrid and online options, we're left with, sort of this image of what I'm sure a lot of learning experiences have turned into in the past as, instructors tried to very quickly move their resources online. And this also leaves us with a lot of questions about this potential new normal where we can't be face-to-face anymore and we're having to move to more hybrid and online solutions. So some of these questions, we must wonder whether the adoption of online learning will continue to persist this post-pandemic, and how much a shift would impact the future of education. Will all of our students have equal access to online learning? Will the shift to online learning be detrimental to student learning? Is this ultimately a good thing or a bad thing for education? And I'm here to hopefully, say with confidence that I think it's going to be a good thing, but with a special caveat that when stars are perfectly aligned and students, learners have access to both technology and well-designed learning environments, there's evidence that learning online can actually be more effective in a lot of ways. Some research shows that on average, students retain 25 to 60% more material when learning online face-to-face. Why is this? Well, oftentimes when you're presenting material online, students get to go through that material at their own pace and figure out what components do they need to spend a little bit more time on, what things can they speed through as well. And I think especially after this pandemic, I feel like more than ever, this growing field of learning experience design can provide a lot of solutions to work through some issues that we've already experienced with this new normal. And I can say as a learning experience designer, now more than ever, I feel like I have job security because, as K through 12 and higher ed institutions continue to look more and more to these hybrid and online learning solutions, there will always be work for me to do with those faculty members, those teachers that are trying to move their courses online. So that was my sort of take on the current state in terms of K through 12 and higher ed, but I know my co-panelist, Ozzy, can speak more about the current state of affairs of learning in the workplace.
Thanks, Lydia. Yeah, and I do want to highlight a couple things because what you said is really important and applies definitely in traditional education contexts, but a lot of what we're finding is that those trends apply in training environments, in organizations and businesses of all kinds. So, you mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic, but keep in mind that the transition into moving to more learner-centered learning experience design, online training, that's been going on for 10 years, or more. So really, of course, the pandemic really accelerated that current trend, but that's already been the way that it's moving. So trainers, organizations of all kinds are looking to how can we most effectively and efficiently train employees to take on the challenges of modern day workplaces. And I want to touch on one thing here that's really important to me as well, and that is the idea that in organizations, learning and training used to be very sort of limited. There was a very narrow view of what training was, when training happened, when learning happened. For many years, learning was a thing of the past. You did it in K through 12, or even not even K through 12, maybe K through 6, and then you were done. Then, some people would do higher education, and then you're done. Then now some people do master's degrees, okay, but then you're done. The reality is that learning is a lifelong process. We are always learning and growing because the circumstances around us are always changing. So if you're not learning, you're not growing, you're not adapting. And for organizations to remain competitive in this tumultuous global environment, learning must be sort of a central and key component of that organization's life. So it has to do with skilling, reskilling, upskilling, lifelong learning, those types of things. I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit, but that I just wanted to give you a taste for now on how important learning and creating compelling learning experiences is for organizations today.
I quickly just also want to chime in before Lydia continues. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box and we'll happily answer those.
Great, thank you. So before we get into the solution, let's talk a little bit more about the problems that are inherent to this typical online learning experience that many of our students, many of us ourselves may have experienced, both during the pandemic and prior to the pandemic. I think top of mind, this, like I've mentioned before, the unplanned and very rapid move to online learning for many professors, instructors, managers with no training, insufficient bandwidth, and little preparation resulted for many in a very poor learning experience and user experience. And this is something that, you know, we don't want to repeat. And if we think back to some of our prior online experiences, say mandated state trainings that we have to do that are delivered online, and they're meant to satisfy a requirement for what, 40,000, 50,000 people every year. That training is not designed with the user in mind. And so if we think back to some of our online experiences, such as these mandatory trainings, there are a lot of issues that we can call to mind. First, a lot of people are just trying to replicate an in-class experience. And by replicating, they're either delivering a synchronous lecture with very little interaction, or they're just uploading a PowerPoint to a learning management system online for their students to go through in their own time. And that's not very engaging, and it's not very dynamic, and it's not a very effective way to deliver content. Additionally, a lot of these trainings are not thoughtfully and intentionally designed to align with the specific learning outcomes or the goals of the organization. So a lot of these less than ideal learning experiences, you may come out of not having learned what you thought you were going to learn, or you may have no idea how to apply it to your everyday life, to your job, depending on what the training was. And then if we're looking, overall at the delivery of those online learning experiences, a lot of them are embedded in very poorly designed user interfaces, and the resources are not very nice to look at. They're not very fun to interact with. And overall, you just don't really want to be there. And so it's all just kind of underlies this idea that these typical online learning experiences kind of, are not putting the learner's needs and preferences at the front or at all. It's more of an afterthought than anything else. And so we're seeing this shift that's starting to happen. It has started happening, just by evidenced by that there's an entire team of learning experience designers that work at LSU Online to develop our courses, that we're shifting from traditional instructional design to this new model of learning experience design in response to this growing need to design courses that both engage learners and drive high impact learning, while also maintaining this emphasis on user experience, making that learning experience enjoyable and something that you want to keep coming back to. So why is LXD a good approach to the new normal? I want to describe kind of a basic overview of the major guiding forces, if you will, of LXD, and Ozzy's going to get into some of the principles, some of the disciplines that LXD incorporates as well. But these are kind of, maybe the 3 laws or the 3 concepts. Again, this is not trademarked material. This is just, in my practice as a learning experience designer, I identified these things as main forces within LX, forces for good. LXD is human-centered, it's goal-oriented, and it's innovation-driven. LXD is special because it goes beyond instructional design to incorporate the learner. Learning experience design combines the theories and practices of instructional design, which are rooted in pedagogy and learning theory and cognitive science, with the considerations of user experience. As learning experience designers, we try to widen the scope of course design to include the learner's environment. How are they going to be interacting with the resources? How are they going to use technology to learn? And we call this human-centered design. So by incorporating these fundamentals of UX and usability within a framework of well-designed curriculum, using those theories, using those best practices from instructional design, learning experience design ensures that you're taking a holistic approach to course design and making sure that the learner is not only going to learn what they need to learn, but they potentially enjoy doing it while they're there. Second, learning experience design is also goal-oriented in that it places a large emphasis on effectiveness and efficiency in trying to prove that a course is effective. And this is because success in learning can be really difficult to measure. And so what we try to do in order to measure whether or not a course is effective is we set achievable learning goals at the beginning of a course and design all of the activities to lead up to those learning goals. We call them outcomes as well. Learning experience design involves creating a strategy to achieve these goals, which employs both pedagogical and technological strategies. And this helps to create an effective and efficient path through the materials for the learner, and ultimately a learning experience that aligns with the purpose of its creation, which is the successful achievement of a learning goal of you walk out of there knowing something new and how to use it in your everyday life. And then finally, learning experience design is driven by innovation. And I'm going to let Ozzy speak to this point.
Yeah, let me just hop in here and say thank you for everything you said about being human-centered and goal-oriented. It's also innovation-driven. And what I mean by that is that when you go through the learning experience design process as a learner, you are pushing the boundaries of what was previously known because you are using technology, you are using innovative methods to think outside the box. It's also innovation driven from the perspective of the designer, the person who is designing the learning experience, because what they're doing is they are trying to integrate the latest technology, the latest thinking about learning theory and about psychology and memory to, okay, how can I facilitate learning in such a way that the learners are thinking in new ways and being creative. And it's really great. Just as a side note, in our school, at the School of Leadership and Human Resource Development at LSU, we recently hired someone who is a creativity expert to teach in our LXDI program, because for this reason, that creativity and innovation, really, that's a cornerstone of what LXD is all about.
I'll just jump in to say that innovation piece is one of the most rewarding parts of my job, is when I'm working with an instructor on a course and trying to come up with a creative way to have students go beyond just a regular discussion forum to show what they've learned, and really drive innovation in their actual learning by making these creative activities, creative ways to visualize different concepts. So that's one of those things that I really enjoy doing as a learning experience designer, is innovating. So I'll let Ozzy cover this slide. This is his realm. These are those principles, those intersections of different disciplines that align with learning experience design.
Thanks, Lydia. Yeah, one of the most exciting things about learning experience design, at least for me as a faculty member, is that it is truly multi and interdisciplinary. So, we think about education just as education. We have a school of education, we have educators, boom, that's it. But learning experience design is not just about education. It integrates all these different disciplines. So, if you're a curious person, it's perfect for LXD because you're going to be able to explore all these different disciplines. Let me just quickly run you through them because I think it will really help to illustrate this point. So if we start on the right, you'll see we have adult learning. So that is one of the core principles here that we discuss when we're talking about LXD. We're thinking about how adults learn. Now, LXD obviously can be applied to children. It can be applied to people of any age, but primarily I work with adults, at least in my work. So how are adults learning? We have to know the theories of adult learning. And if we want to know how to create and design experiences for those adults. Then if I go down the wheel, you'll see technology. if you want to be a good learning experience designer, you have to be curious and interested in technology and all the different things. And actually, like Lydia is a perfect example of this, because Lydia is someone who is always, in fact, Lydia is the one who designed this infographic you're seeing here, this image. So because she's so good at finding new technologies, new creative ways to build content, and using Zoom, she's a whiz at all those things. And you kind of need to be on that cutting edge if you want to be a good learning experience designer. You can't just sort of sit back and just do it the way you've always done it. That's where that innovation piece comes. Another principle, if I kind of keep going down this wheel, is design thinking. And for those of you not familiar with design thinking, this is something that came out of architecture, design, but now you can see books on design thinking in pretty much every aspect of your life. There's the famous book, Design Your Life, for example, which is about using design principles in your life, in your career. So basically you go through this iterative process in design thinking where you are identifying problems, you're generating ideas about them, you're empathizing, you are gathering information, and then you're sort of coming up with solutions and testing them to see what works best. Let me just tell you, in most education and training contexts, people do not test things to see if they work before doing them. They just do them. But in design thinking and learning experience design, that's a feature of how we do what we do to make sure that we're creating the best learning experiences. Content design, I already mentioned this great graphic that Lydia made, but it's all about, so what makes a good graphic? What makes a good image? It's people just use their gut most of the time. But if you want to be a good learning experience designer, you have to actually learn what makes a good graphic, what makes a good video, when to use audio, all those types of questions. You also, I mentioned my degree in human development and psychology. You also have to know about cognitive science. How does the brain work? How does memory work? How does attention work? If you don't know those things, it's going to be really hard to design a good experience for people. So for example, let me just give you a great example. We try and keep videos relatively short, like around that 6-minute mark, because the research shows that if you have these long 37-minute videos, people stop listening. It's really hard to listen. Then we also incorporate data analytics and evaluation. So when you're a learning experience designer, you are gathering information. What's worked? This kind of ties in with design thinking as well. What's been working well? You're evaluating yourself. You're also evaluating, getting feedback from the learners, finding out what's worked well with them. What are they really clinging to, and what are you losing them on? And we have sort of systems that we do that with, so that way we know, and we sort of are collecting that data, we know what's working and what's not working. And then lastly is the idea of user experience design. By the way, these are not in order of first to last. I just sort of chose to go in that order. But user experience design, or UX design, as Lydia called it, is, we think about products, think about your phone, okay? Is it user-friendly? Is it intuitive? Is it credible? Is it accessible? Does it flow? Those are all principles of user experience design that we incorporate in learning experience design. For example, if you use a learning management system, an LMS like Moodle or Blackboard, that should be smooth. It shouldn't be like, oh, I don't know, where do I go to find this? And I don't know. It should be easy. It should be almost something like you can just pick it up and go without any training. That's UX. So that's just a very quick and dirty about the principles of learning experience design. But I want to keep in mind that even these principles change, because learning experience design is such a dynamic field. So even these 7 principles I've outlined today, these things are changing and growing as we learn more.
We might even be adding AI one of these days.
I think
that's
so.
Kind of an emerging part of where learning is going.
And I think I might file that under technology, at least for now. But yeah, that's a great point. So AI, VR, AR, all those different new technologies that are helping us And actually with AI, since you mentioned it, we're going to be using AI in a lot of these different ways. We're going to be using AI, for example, in data analytics and evaluation, having machine learning to collect information as well. So I think AI is something that could potentially be a part of a lot of different principles in this model, at least.
So Ozzy kind of alluded to it earlier, but Ozzy and I actually had the opportunity to design one of the first courses in the LXDI program together. That's actually where this graphic comes from. It's called the Principles of Learning Experience Design. And I put together just a short course preview of just module 1 of this course. So this is just surface overview, so you can get a better sense of the look and feel of his course. And we'll talk a little bit about what went into our process of learning experience design. I'm just going to make sure that my sound is shared. All right. Well, that was just a short introduction into Module 1 of Principles of Learning Experience Design. And like I said, we collaborated on this course together. So at least at LSU, the learning experience designer and the subject matter expert or professor or instructor that we're creating the course with, we really are collaborators. We engage in a partnership where, I'm relying on him for the expertise. And in this unique situation, I had some practical expertise. Again, my background is not necessarily in education. I've had experience teaching, but my experience comes from practicing learning experience design and designing my own courses. So broadly, I want to make a comment that all of the courses that we design for LSU Online have been created with this consistent look and feel. And so all of the courses that you enroll in with LSU Online are going to have the same navigational structure. So when you first get into a course, it may take a little bit of time to get used to where things are at, but once you've been in one course, you will have a predictable experience in the next course. We achieve this through an extensive user experience design process where we want these courses to be well organized, streamlined, accessible, and enjoyable for that optimal student experience. So if you're thinking about, a particular application on your phone that for some reason you can't stop using it, like hello Instagram, it's addictive. That's what we want our courses to be, not in an addictive way, but we want people to keep coming back. And then wherever possible, in this particular course that I worked with Ozzy on, I like to bring in the voice and the personality of the instructor to the core components of the course material. And so you saw a couple of those videos where, Ozzy, Dr. Crocco ties it all together, where you will get some of that personality and interaction with the instructor. And then when we're looking at the actual efficiency and effectiveness of the course material, we use a backwards design model when we're designing the curriculum, where we begin by specifying the learning outcomes or goals of the course. So this is something that Ozzy and I worked on. There were 3 to 4 major goals that we wanted students to be able to walk away being able to do at the end of the course. And then we ensure that all of the course activities, assessments, and resources support the achievement of that goal. And then when we're looking at those goals, we try to develop what we call authentic project-based assessments so that students can apply what they've learned in a real world context. And Ozzy did this very artfully in his course. Ozzy, could you talk a little bit about your user experience museum assignment?
Sure. Before I do that, I do want to quickly just say that, how many of you have sat in a class or been in a training module where you felt like the trainer or the instructor was they weren't driven by a goal, and what you were doing didn't relate to the goal of the course, right? So if there was a goal, what you're doing wasn't aligned. And I think that's sort of what we do as learning experience designers, that you have a goal in mind, and then you make sure that everything you do is reaching towards that goal. And that makes learning really satisfying and really enjoyable, as you mentioned, Lydia. So one of the ways you do that, as you mentioned, Lydia, is, we have assignments like the user experience design museum assignment, where what I do is I have my students, so instead of, for example, if I wanted to teach you about user experience design, what I could do is go through a bunch of slides about user experience design and talk about them, blah, 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 blah. That is so obviously horrible and boring. So what I do is I put the onus on you. What you do is you go out to a museum. Now, museums are designed to facilitate a learning experience. So it's some kind of museum. You go there. And what I have you do is I have you with a kind of like a checklist of things to look for in terms of the user experience design of that museum experience. Is it easy to read? Is it easy? Does the experience flow? When you walk in, do you know where to go? Are you learning about things as you go? Is the museum accessible? Are the sources that are cited credible? All these types of things that we talk about with user experience design, you are reflecting on in your own experience. So I'm not telling you, you're experiencing it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to reflect and actually share back with me in a presentation what you learned about user experience design and the user experience design at that museum. And you're also going to come up with recommendations for how to improve user experience design, which you may or may not want to send to the museum curator. But that's one example of how we have really highly interactive and enjoyable assignments that ultimately are the best way for you to learn about the topic, in this case, user experience design.
And throughout the process, Ozzy and I would bounce ideas off of one another. He would start out with an idea for an assignment, and I say, well, what if we use this tool to accomplish that? Again, pulling from my knowledge of technology and the resources that we have available at LSU. And we would iterate. So using that design thinking process over the course of our development process to determine, is this the best way to do it? And then after the course has been offered one time, we make modifications. So one thing, Ozzy, you can speak to it a little bit more, but the fact that students had to go to a museum, that part of the assignment actually had to be changed, right?
Yeah, but thankfully, as you recall from the COVID-19 pandemic, there was so many online museum experiences. So Smithsonian, I'm from Washington, D.C. The Smithsonian museums, what they did is they made them all virtual. So it was actually really easy. You could do the exact same thing. Some of them you were like walking into the museum and you just sort of clicked, kind of like Google Maps, sort of like clicking where you wanted to go throughout the museum and then sort of zoom in on things. And we were able to do the assignment that way, which is great.
And so the big thing there is, that with each offering of the course, we're improving and iterating on using the feedback that we've gotten from students, from the data in the course itself. And so it's a constant revision process, trying to constantly improve the course. And, you know, as a former student, I would really enjoy taking a course like this, because you're gonna learn the theories, the concepts that are the foundations of learning experience design, but you're also going to be able to apply them in a practical and real world sense, so that you can really talk about them knowledgeably and apply them hopefully to a career in LXD, which takes me to our next slide on the different career paths that LXD offers. So obviously I work in higher ed, but there are a lot of other paths that I think Ozzy's gonna outline for us today.
Yeah, I mean, so if you just look at jobs in the learning and development space, there are so many that look for people who can design trainings, who can design learning experiences, learning officers, learning analysts. There are LXD positions, but really at every level, especially these days post-COVID or sort of during COVID, people are looking for how to do this virtually. And I think that is the future, by the way, regardless of pandemics. So, you know, corporations are doing it, nonprofits are doing it, governments are doing it. We joke if you are like an employee of the Louisiana government, you are required to do an annual ethics training. So all of us at LSU are. And you know, right now it's a really sort of outdated training, but that's an example of a government. And, you know, you just kind of go through and it's very it's not user centered, as Lydia will talk about, but
hopefully they don't come for us after this webinar, but
I don't think so.
Tell them to call me, I'll help them out.
Yeah, I think any of us really could bring a lot of, or someone who went through one of our programs could bring a lot of value to, for example, an outdated ethics training. So yeah, that's some of that. But really, I would encourage you to look at some of the jobs. You'll see some of them do lean a little bit more towards technology. So they want you to have a little bit more coding experience. But the great thing about being part of LSU or another large institution is that, you know, here we have courses in coding throughout the university or in whatever you need for the job that you want, you know, so.
And just speaking from experience, I mean, we were recently hiring for 2 LXD positions, and we went through rounds and rounds and rounds of interviews trying to find someone local who had these skills, and we could not find a good fit. There's even though since this is such an emerging field, I think there's a big gap in the market for people who have these skills. So I think it's a very timely it's a timely degree and a timely set of skills that we'll continue to have a need for as we move forward. So I want to now turn it over to Kristen, who's going to talk a little bit more about the programs that we offer within learning experience design and just the overall student experience of being an LSU online student.
Thank you, Lydia, and thank you, Ozzy. Again, that was some really great information. I'm almost tempted to see if I want to apply for LXDI. Just before I get started, I wanted to thank you all again for joining us today. Here at LSU Online, we completely understand that everyone has a unique situation and a unique story. So our team's goal is really to meet you where you are in your education journey so that you can not only meet those goals, but ultimately the career goals that you'd like to achieve. So we offer many different options through our Go for Free programs, our online distance learning programs, certificate programs, microcredit, badges, associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, all the way up to master's degrees. So today we've obviously been talking about LXDI and the undergraduate degree, which focuses mainly on applying LXDI to organizations and businesses in order to bring that information not only to the public, but to employees and clients utilizing technology. So our LXDI program is stackable, meaning that if you're not completely ready to jump into a bachelor's program today or even tomorrow, we do offer our learning experience design microcredit, which consists of a series of 5 courses, and that guides all of our students through course design and development processes. And that's going to focus more on instructional design theories and frameworks and tools so that you can have practical application of these, these skills in order to develop high quality learning experience and digital platforms across the different industries that Ozzy mentioned earlier. And last but not least, if you just want to get your feet wet and you're not sure if this is something you're interested in, but we've intrigued you today by giving you all of this great information, we are offering a go for free microcredit that allows our students, to kind of dip your toe in the water there. And that's going to be our COVID-19 resources for educators microcredit. And it is 100% self-paced and really intended to support our educators, especially due to this COVID-19 environment that we're experiencing, to begin to increase your understanding of these issues and how to transition into remote learning and move forward in this new normal that we've kind of gotten ourselves into.
And Kristen, I just wanted to jump in and say that the Learning Experience Design Microcred, as well as the LXDI Bachelor's, Dr. Crocco helped design the LXDI courses. I, was the learning experience designer on some of those courses, and he also teaches some of those courses. For that microcred, I designed those courses and I teach one of those courses. So when you sign up for either a microcred or the bachelor's degree, you're getting the same instructors oftentimes that design the courses, that are also teaching the courses, that also teach these courses on campus. So you're getting the same high quality, LSU faculty that are teaching on campus, but in an online modality.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so you're really talking to your potential professors right now. If you do have any questions, we're happy to answer those live as we continue. And as you can see here, we do offer our students credit for their real world experience professionally and through the military through multiple certifications that you've likely already got under your belt. So this allows you not only to finish your degree programs quicker, but it'll save you time and money. And if you're curious and want to learn more about the different certifications we accept in lieu of courses, we do have a list on our website, but feel free to reach out to LSU Online, and one of our enrollment coordinators or enrollment concierges, we'd be happy to help you guys kind of navigate that and get started. And then what you're going to get if you contact LSU today is obviously someone like me on the phone to help you, but we are going to promote world-class customer service from the very beginning. When you first speak to someone or reach out to us by applying to our programs, we want to take the headache out of going back to school. We know that this decision is not an easy one, and a lot, especially for non-traditional students, a lot of you guys have work obligations, familial obligations that obviously do take priority. Being that our programs are 100% online, and as Lydia has mentioned, we built these to be 100% accessible to you. So you're able to access that wherever. And our goal really is to allow you, the student, to focus on your coursework and be successful. We not only want you to enroll, we want you to finish, we want you to graduate, and we want, to share in your successes. Our team members are going to be there for you every step through the process, from right until you first reach out, till you submit your application, potentially get admitted, and graduate and finish the program or microcredit that you're interested in. We have learner concierges and enrollment coordinators available to you to bridge that gap between you and our on-campus resources. And we want you to feel a part of our LSU family 100%. So our LSU community is far and vast. We do have alumni chapters throughout the nation, and we really want to provide a true Southern Louisiana hospitality feeling to you. We strive to make sure that you feel at home, not only with us, but once you join your alumni chapters that are across the nation, you're going to be a part of our LSU legacy always and forever. And we allow students who are in the online sector to get Tiger cards. We encourage that. You'll have a student ID, LSU student Tiger card. You can reach out to us if you're interested in purchasing LSU football tickets, which is great. I think every one of you should definitely experience a Saturday night in Death Valley. It is unlike any other experience you've ever had, and I can totally attest to that as an LSU alumni and a season ticket holder. So I recommend that you also look up LSU Online on YouTube. We have tons of videos and firsthand student testimonials that are going to tell you just how much they've enjoyed being a part of LSU Online and what you can look forward to, you know, potentially as a student. And we really can't wait to hear from you. So, and the good news is that you can contact us now. I did see a question in the chat earlier. So our next start date is going to be mid-October. And if you want to get started in mid-October, that is perfectly fine. Just make sure that you submit your application soon. Our documents deadline and app deadline is going to be at the beginning of October. So you have about a month to kind of get that situated, and we'd love to help you. We have team members available from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Central Time. We're able to talk with you over the phone. You can contact us by email. We also have live chat up on our website. So if you have an undergraduate question, there's a chance you may speak with me directly through live chat. And the great news is, like I said, we still have time to get you enrolled. So please reach out to our team members. We're happy to help. Our schedule of classes rolls out every 8 weeks. So we have start dates coming up this fall still, and obviously in the spring and the summer. And also another reminder, for all of you that signed up for the webinar, you will be receiving a recording of this presentation in about a week. And we do still have some time left. If you guys have any additional questions for us, we will be happy to address those. And I want to thank you all again for, you know, joining us and taking part in this. Obviously, this is going to be the future of education, and we would love for you to grow with us and further your career.
Thank you, Kristen. And yeah, we'll stay on for a little bit longer if any of you guys have questions.
Okay, it looks like we do have another question that came in. If you're not sure if you've enrolled or not, feel free to reach out to LSU Online. You can give us a call or shoot us over an email. We can have one of our enrollment concierges look up your application potentially if you've already filled one out to determine if it's under review or if you've been admitted and you're ready to enroll in the program.
And I'll just go back to that slide with the contact email on there, as well as the phone number. I can, my office, whenever we were not working remote, was very, very close to the learner concierges. And so I would hear some of the conversations they would be having with their students. And it's amazing the types of relationships that those learner concierges are able to build over time, because they have students that come in, they start out maybe with a microcred and then decide they want to do a full degree program. And, you know, 2 years later, they're here at graduation getting to meet with this person that they've talked to week after week and really gotten to know. So, you know, I love that we have this resource, and they're great people. I really do miss working down the hall from all the learner concierges.
Yeah, our main goal as an EC, myself, is just to make sure that you're confident in starting these courses. Like I said, sometimes it's really hard for a student to even, you know, pick up the phone and reach out and take that first step. And we want to make that easier for you, and that's why we're here. Is because we want to support you to make sure that finishing your classes is your #1 priority.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. All righty. Well, it's looking pretty dead on the chat pod now. If you guys think of anything else, again, we have our phone number. Anything else that's related to enrolling in courses. We have our phone number up on the slide here, as well as the email addresses. Oh, looks like we have another one. This is a Kristen question. Can I use prior work experience as college credits?
So Michael, you can if you have certain certifications. Due to LSU's accreditations, we want to make sure that the work experience that you have, if you have, specific continuing education courses that you've taken that are job related, it is going to be at the discretion of the department itself. But we definitely would love to hear from you, and we can get connected. Definitely reach out to LSU Online. And we can talk, about the program that you're potentially interested in and that work experience to see how that aligns with our prior learning credits that we offer.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It was great to, I guess I didn't meet any of you, but see your names, read your questions. And I hope we gave you some things to think about as we all kind of navigate this new education normal, this new normal together. And, we hope that you come and join us at LSU Online. We'd love to have you. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.